decision-making process in our town.
I agree with a lot of what most of these up here have said. It's really difficult. I'm a student. I can't make it to a 1 o'clock meeting. I haven't really even been able to make it to a city council meeting. I've only been able to see it on Facebook afterwards. Maybe we could look into, instead of having it a council meeting on every other Tuesday at 5 o'clock, we could move it to a Friday later, or even on a Saturday. Knocking on doors while we're in city council, getting more involved at fundraisers or things like spoon bread and things like that.
In order for the residents to be involved in the decision-making process, I think it's very important to interact and make yourself available. And since day one I came to Berea almost 25 years ago, I've been involved in the non-profits work. For example, in the Folk Circle Association, where I am the current president. I've been a soccer coach for youth in Madison United for 8 years, and I can say, if it hadn't been for my son's involvement in soccer or track and fields, there would have been so many wonderful people I would never have known, just because of my child. And I think that's very, very important. So being a soccer coach for so many years, but also being a past president for Madison Southern's track and fields booster club has great value. And I'm also the founder and current coordinator of Berea Celtic Festival, where we bring a lot of people and musicians to town. I'm the founder and director of Hands For Dance Weekend, where we bring people in from 18, 20 states every year. So being involved in the community is very, very important, and that's also where you get your inspiration from. If people didn't come, you wouldn't get inspired. Every time people come to the events you're involved in, the more inspiration you get, and the more you want to do for the town. And I have harvested a lot of goodwill there.
Our city government, we should continue to strive to improve communication, make our information available to where not only is the community able to reach the council members, the mayor, but also there's so many other agencies, the Codes Department, GIS. As a resident, I've gotten to know a lot of these individuals, and they're engaged, they're helpful. When we were working to make Berea Trail Town, I reached out to the GIS department. That's the mapping department. Generates all the plats and all the maps for the city of Berea. They were able to help me put together maps of all the trails through Madison County. As residents, it helps when we go to the meetings. It helps when we lend our voice during public comment, because this issue that you have, you might find through speaking out in public comment that all of a sudden there's 6, 7, a dozen more people that have the same issue. It allows you to come together and make your voice stronger.
Thank you. Do we have any additional rebuttals? Seeing as we have no additional rebuttals, I'd just like to let everyone know that this will be our final question before we open up the floor to community members. So have your questions ready so we can start that after this. Our final question from Deepak will be, what do you think a city councilor's role is in addressing street harassment of pedestrians? And we will be starting with Mr. Martin. Yes, of course. What do you think a city councilor's role is in addressing street harassment of pedestrians? Yes, of course. Excuse the microphone issues. What do you think a city councilor's role is in addressing street harassment of pedestrians. So that would be anyone on the street, whether it be community members or college students.
You saying harassment on the street? Well, here we come back to that again. It has a lot to do with you putting yourself in that position. I don't think the city of Berea has a problem with harassment. If they do, I'll never know about it. But I think that's something that we don't do in Berea. That's not going to make the city any better. If we're out harassing people, then people are not going to come. We want people to come to Berea and stay in Berea. That's a situation that the council people should look at more thoroughly and come up with a solution.
I'm not sure what the council can do. It seems like this past year there was a bullying or harassment bill or ordinance that was passed. I'm sure Steve will know more about that one when it gets to him. I'm not sure what the council can do. I do know that if you are being harassed, you file a police report and you go to the county attorney's office in Richmond, and then it goes to the court system. And it's not a pleasant experience. But I'm not really sure what council can do as far as stopping people from harassment.
I think this stems from essentially the walking up Walmart Hill. It's probably the worst place that happens. Am I right? Anybody? Okay. So 4 years ago, actually, no, two and a half years ago, the city council passed a resolution specifically talking about this, because there was a situation where there was also a truck that was driving around that specifically would kind of target students or really anybody that wasn't white, basically, as they were coming up the hill, and they would harass and chase, and there was even a situation where they sort of circled people at Walmart. The best thing that a council person can do is to continue to support things like that, resolutions like that, and to work with our police to make sure that that never happens in our city. At that time, there was a situation where the police, I think, came on campus and talked to student groups to tell them what they can do, to reach out and the phone numbers to call. But that's the best thing, is to work with students, work with citizens, and work with the police department to make sure that the relationships are there so that everyone always feels comfortable when there's an issue, because council people can't really do that much in terms of making additional ordinances, because there's already laws in place that take care of that. But we have to continue to keep an environment to where people feel comfortable reporting that to the police, and that they know that if there is ever an issue and they report it, that something will be done, and that the city of Berea does care about that, because that is a major issue. We don't ever want anyone, student, citizen, non-citizen, whatever, to be harassed as they're walking through the city of Berea.
I agree. I don't think there's much that the city council can do to stop harassment. An ordinance or a law isn't going to stop someone from saying something to someone they don't like. What we see that city council could do is to encourage the people, not necessarily to take the law into their own hands, but see something, say something, stand up to them. Don't let the harasser harass. We can't do that. But city council, there's really not much that they can do from a legal standpoint.
Well, I think it's horrible if people and students who come here to study and want to build a future from here are being harassed, no matter how. I think the best way is to contact the police and public safety at the college, and if you can, and if somebody's in the car, try to see if you can remember the license plate number and go from there. That's my best suggestion. I think it's absolutely horrible.
Definitely, if you're ever harassed, say something. Let the police department know, let safety and security know. don't be afraid to tell too many people. If you want to send us an email talking about a harassment event that occurred in the community, you know, we'll listen. You know, I think we've got a very good police department. I think they will do their best to answer complaints of harassment. They won't be able to solve every issue, but, you know, the more we know, the better educated we can be.
So I keep hearing there's nothing that the council can really do. Yes, of course, call the police, do all of those things, but never underestimate the power of a leader speaking out against these acts and using their platform to create a different culture for our community. So we recently had members who are vying for council mocking the Pride Week. And it did not even come up in the city council meeting. There was not a single voice on that council that thought it was important enough to mention or to discuss in any sort of way, like what are we going to do about this? And, you know, there are several city council members recently who committed to doing green dot training and other anti-bias training. There's been no follow-up on that. You need someone on the council who's gonna hold each other accountable too, and also not be afraid to voice when these things are going wrong. And, you know, some people who don't think we have a harassment problem, we have an incredible harassment problem, and we've seen a huge uptick in harassment cases through, you know, the HRC. So, gosh, it's so intimidating, that finger just going up. I'm sorry. And then I get all like lost. No, but like I said, for me in particular, I think that I am looking for a different type of leadership where at least someone is saying this is not right and this is not who we are. And if that means bringing, you know, pastors together and saying how are we going to solve this issue with our congregations and how we're going to solve this issue on the college campus, and bringing people together to actually talk about it and admit that there is a problem, right? We have to admit that there is a problem. And then we can come up with some solutions.
Okay, that works. Before we begin, I'd actually like to make sure, does anyone have an additional rebuttal or anything they'd like to share? Seeing as there are no rebuttals, I'd like to move on to the community-based questions. And before going on to that, I'd like to read some reminders and rules for those questions. Questions should be respectful of individuals and relevant to the position the candidates are running for. If you need to provide background for a question, we're asking that you keep it short, just to keep this moving. Only one question per person at a time, so you can sit down and come back. The announcer will be holding the microphone at the front of the room. Because of an issue that we had with the microphone, I'd just like to ask that you come to me and I'll provide you with a microphone. Or if you're loud enough and you feel confident where you're standing, you can speak to the community and the candidates. And then, oh, are you sure? Thank you.
We can share.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Okay, well, it makes sense to just stay here since I've already begun here. And it works, that's awesome. Okay, so would anyone from the community like to come up and ask a question? Yeah.
Hey, thank you all for coming. It's wonderful to have you here and so easily accessible. I was just walking through. I think it's really important to go over, you know, issues that are already existing in the community and how we can address those. But I'm also really interested to hear what are your visions for the community? What would you like to see the community become, or things that you'd like to see strengthened? The things that, like, you know, if you have a moment when you're not sort of battling all the awful things, what are some of the great things that you'd like to see?
I think we'll begin with Ms. Bland because we just began. Thank you.
I would like to see more of the community coming together and working on issues. I mean, we've had recent experiences where people are coming together from many different groups and working on cleaning up the streets, or, I just lost my thought. But I'd really like to see people just forgetting everybody else's background, like you're from another country, you're from another city, another state, you're a different race, you're a different religion, you have a different political belief, and just, forgetting all those things and working together to make Berea a better place to live. That's what we all want, I think. And if we can just look past the issues that divide us, I think we can be a much better city.
If anything, would you mind passing it this way? So,
You
no.
just go to Daryl and we'll just.
Yeah,
go back.
well, yeah, so it's easier.
Then we'll go back to Steven and then Steven. Okay.
Well, I think we need to, have more city-wide functions, bring the people together. We don't do that anymore. Used to, we had things like that. Probably some of the people here probably don't remember it when we had the Ed DeVere farm. We had tractor pulls, we had truck pulls. Everybody enjoyed it. It was just something that you didn't have to be invited, you come.
So that's awesome. I think someone has to organize it. We do have some events like Levitt Amp, which brings people together. I love going to those Friday nights. But I would love to see a community center in Berea. I have a passion for kids, and particularly those who have been abused and neglected. And I would love to have a center where, families could maybe rehabilitate from whatever issues they're coming out of. I'd like to see more collaboration with the city and the college to address some of the social issues in our town. And our arts community, which is, slowly dwindling, I'd like to, bolster that again. I even plan to visit Grayson, Kentucky, which has a thriving arts community, and they have a lot of really huge community-wide events going on that I just think we could do here too. And I would love to see, I'm hoping to pick up some ideas to bring back whenever I go visit.
I want to see us continue to grow Trail Town Berea by improving our sidewalks, shared use paths, and parks. I think it's a good way to diversify our tourism. I want to see more partnerships. I think we hear that word a lot, and it's an important word. We've had some great partnerships. We've accomplished really nice things. A public library we recently had is called the Know-It-All Festival. We brought people from all over the county teaching little 20-minute classes on different topics. But we couldn't have had the program without the community coming together. Levitt Amp is another example. Crafts Fair, another example. I think with our factories, we can utilize partnerships to help more Bereans be the ones selected to work at the factories. Now we have a great percentage of people from Jackson County, Rockcastle County, Fayette County coming to Berea to work in our factories because we don't have trained workers. And I think we can accomplish partnerships with those factories, find out what their needs are, and get them to help us train Bereans for jobs in Berea.
I think it's very important to work to improve the hospitality business in Berea. We need to update our vocational skills, so if we have industries coming to town, we need to make sure that we can offer employment from our local pool of people. But if they are not updated with their skills, the industries will move to other communities. And another thing about the retail business in Berea, if you want retail businesses to be in Berea 3 years from now, you better start shopping here tomorrow, otherwise they're gone.
I agree with what Emily said about the arts. In Berea, where art's alive, and you don't see much of it anymore. But in fact, a mural was painted over at the old 123 gallery, I think, but a new one was painted somewhere else. But you just don't see that much art. But that's what I would like to see it get back to, is art.
Great question, by the way, because we do often focus on the negative issues and forget some of the wonderful things that we have in our city. I think our Parks Department and our parks, you know, I don't want to throw shade at our city for what we've done with our parks, because we've done really an exceptional job with our parks, and we've never, not one time, this is something most people don't realize, not one time have they ever asked for something that we haven't given them. But what we have to do as leaders is have a vision for what comes next. Is it lacrosse? Is it more soccer? Is it more baseball? Is it whatever the case may be? Because we need to start looking at what we can do next when it comes to parks. And then also, we have to continue to work with our school districts and to find a way to get a area technology center, which most people call a vocational school, in Berea. Because our students now are riding a bus for 30 minutes to get to a vocational school so that they have hands-on training at that vocational school, and it would be such a resource for us to work with our industries what they need. We've already done those studies and asked those questions, but we have to get those here. And then the other thing that we need to continue to do is we need to get somebody into economic development, because we just lost our economic developer, and in the last 3 years, we've done more in economic development, I think, than we've done in the last 10. And I think that most of that is because of him, because he was a person, and this is something that the city really worked at, who was the resource for businesses. And we have to continue to be the resource, because we won't get small businesses like Native Bagel and Noodle Urbana and Papalino's to open if we aren't the resource for those businesses when they want to start looking for space. If they don't know what space is available, they can't rent it. And so we can't rely on the private industry to be the only ones who reach out to those people. So we have to be the first point of contact when it comes to small business.
The guy he's talking about is a Berea alum, by the way.
He was, yeah.
Thank you.
He is, I guess it's like.
Just a small comment. I think it's important that we understand that a lot of things are actually going on in town, and we have a lot of wonderful artists in town, very, very talented. We have a lot of cultural activities going on in town. And while I have Main Street Cafe and Berea Center for the Arts, I probably arranged between 350 and 400 live music performances. And it's not happening right now. But I know there are forces in town that would really like to start something. So having a place, if it's affordable, because it's not profitable to have live music, just to be honest. Out of these 350, 400 performances I had, maybe 20 of them gave a little surplus. So, but it was enough, it was important enough for me to continue doing that, because live music is so important.
Are there any other questions for this meeting? All right, I'll come to you.
I don't need a mic.
Okay.
Before I ask my question, I'd like to advertise the Berea citywide cleanup. It's going to be happening this Saturday morning, starting at 9 o'clock at City Hall. A group of us have gotten together and selected 5 different locations to spread out in and to start cleaning up those specific places as a first round of Berea cleanup. Anybody who drives around this city realizes how beautiful it is, but if you look in the ditches and some of the bushes and other places, what you see is trash along the roads. There's no reason for that, and it's going to be up to us to clean it up. So there's probably 40 people came to the first meeting, and we honed that down to a steering committee of sorts of about maybe 8 or 10 people. We now have a plan. There's posters up. There's stuff on Facebook. So please, if you have the time and you care about making the city look better, please come to the cleanup starting at 9 o'clock Saturday morning at Berea City Hall. That's not my question. That's my advertisement. I only have 11 questions, but I'm only going to ask one, right? Okay. That is, do you have any specific ideas, not rhetorical positions, but specific ideas about how this city can address the opioid and drug problems that we face? I know it's a huge challenge, and everybody is on the same page about we have to do something. If you don't have a specific idea, that's fine, because if you make it on council, we can go places and find out what works. We can research, we can develop a plan. So you don't have to have one now. But I'm asking, if you do, I would like to hear it. Thank you.
Great question. Complicated question, but great question. I think probably the number one thing that we need to do as a city and as a council is support those who are trying to get treatment facilities in our county or our city. Because I don't think from a city standpoint that we have the resources or expertise to do that. I mean, this is complicated enough to where the White House is Wednesday coming out with their plan on opioid addiction. And this has been a problem for a very long time, and I don't know that anybody really has the answer, but I think that the number one thing that we can do is just be advocates for that, because it scares people. It kills me when people start acting like it's some sort of weakness or something like that. My best friend is a psychiatrist who specializes in addiction, and so I know that it's a disease, and we have to start treating it that way, and we need